Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Running the Bases podcast. We are here in episode 4 in season number 1, and man, this has been yet another amazing week of baseball. This has been absolutely incredible for this last week, and yet again, I'm here with a guest. I'll let you introduce yourself.
What's up, guys? My name is Nick Nath here, previously from the Los Angeles area, but sadly, I'm a Tigers fan.
Yeah, I'm sure that's a disappointing disappointing life. And we were just talking before, and you were like, "Yeah, I'm clearly not a bandwagoner fan." I was like, "Yeah, I don't know if you could be, but
probably not."
Yeah, so it's cool to have. I like having the variety. Last week having a Dodgers fan on. We were able to talk about winning stuff, and then we've got Tigers who when was the last time the Tigers made the playoffs?
I would say. Was it 2015?
All right,
somewhere around that.
It was a lot more recent than I expected, but I think it was around that area. But it's been a great week in baseball. I mean, we're gonna just jump right into it here from September 17th to September 23rd. Obviously, not including things from this morning, unless something huge happened in the news, which it didn't. But we're gonna be kicking it right off with Dellin Betances in his first game back from being on the injured list. He tore his Achilles jumping on the mound. I mean, this is awful.
Yeah. Big blow to the Yankees pen, obviously, as they head into the playoffs as the 1 seed, presumably in the AL. This could honestly be what separates them from the Astros at this point.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, the Astros have a great bullpen, and I mean, I've been saying it all year. I just don't think that the Yankees pitching is good enough to get them there. But I mean, the fact that it was his first game back.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, first of all, when it's your first game back, I mean, I understand he was excited. It was his first game of the year, and he came out and he was excited. I mean, he struck somebody out. He jumped up on the mound. He thought that it was a third out, which it wasn't, which was even funnier. Yeah. And then he just tore his Achilles. I'm like, man, like how can you let that happen? Like that just can't happen.
It can't. No, and obviously, as we jump into it, these Yankees pitchers are they're starting to fall like dominoes as we see Domingo German obviously also get placed on the administrative leave. What do you think about that one too?
Yeah, that was also very interesting. I mean, I was really surprised that that actually happened. That's the second time now in a matter of weeks that we've had a pitcher being involved in something like that.
Yeah.
So that was very, very it was very, I mean, it struck me, but it's also a killer blow. I mean, for the Yankees, I mean, the Yankees have such great, they've got such a great potential for this pitching staff, and Domingo German really, he brought that up. I mean, he made it like that. I mean, he was a great pitcher, and he was kind of the heart of that pitching staff for the entire year. So, I mean, look, it's a tough blow, and I mean, you've just got to hope. I mean, because now he's out for the playoffs, he can't pitch. I mean, it's tough for them.
Yeah, it is really tough, and I mean, like I said, the Yankees have hitting. We all know that.
Yeah.
I mean, the good news for them, they got Stanton back just the other day. He hit a moonshot. He's still doing what he's doing. Like I said, these Astros, they look a little more complete than the Yankees right now, as of right now.
Yeah, I'm definitely. I mean, we talked about it last week. They have a great rotation. I mean, quite possibly the best in baseball.
I think the best, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that's not even really up for debate at this point with the addition of Greinke, and then you've got their bullpen is just it's great. I mean, I feel like people really underrate that bullpen, but when you've got Domingo German, I'm just thinking about him. When you've got Roberto Osuna, Ken Giles, I mean, you've got a great bullpen out there. Yeah. So, I mean, for the time being, it seems like the Astros just got a huge upper hand on them.
They really did.
And then the next thing we move on to here is Miguel Rojas getting a 2-year extension with a team option with the Marlins. He was very happy about this. I saw a picture that he was actually was brought to tears when he was announced with this. I mean, personally, I don't know why I'd be so excited to be on the Marlins, but I mean, I understand if it's your home team. I mean, I get it with Wilmer Flores too back in 2015 when he was crying because he had been with the team. Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, I understand if you've had the ties to the team for a long time, but I mean, if you look at it, I mean, it's just, 2 years, it's not a lot to get excited about, but it's good for him. He's a young player. He killed the Mets last night. So, I mean, if he can be the base of what is really a beleaguered franchise, I mean, it's a great opportunity for him.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, coming from the LA area, when this guy's on the Dodgers, he was a fan favorite. He's worked hard, did his thing, was consistent every night, was a good utility player, could really play anywhere. He even caught some games, played in the infield, outfield. The Marlins, I don't know if I agree with the Don Mattingly extension, but this extension does make sense as he is a player that is just like reliable and consistent and can help them even rebuild, as this rebuild will take longer than expected.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and you mentioned the Don Mattingly signing. I didn't have that on here, but that is something definitely worth noting. I mean, I thought that was awesome for him. I mean, look, for the Marlins, I feel like because he's a guy who's been there, you know, I mean, he's led the Dodgers to the playoffs, even though he never really did anything.
Yeah.
I think I could understand why they would want him. There's really not many people out there. If you think about it, there's not many managers out there that can lead a team that's so like not even kind of even dead at this point to possibly even a 500 record, especially in the division that they're in. It's not going to be easy, but I mean, Don Mattingly's he's a great face in baseball. I mean, everyone can agree on that. He's a great face. And so far it's a nice thing to see him. But then the next thing and the final thing, we have two final things here. The Padres firing Andy Green, their manager. This is really not necessarily a surprise, but it kind of came out of nowhere because it's not like anyone was talking about it. But I mean, I can understand. I mean, if you look at the Padres lineup, they should definitely be doing a lot better than they are. It's just their pitching. It's held them back.
Yeah. I mean, coming into the season, it was like, okay, they get Harper Machado. They get Machado. They get their guy for, 330 mil. But then, like, they don't, like you said, their pitching is just, like, so abysmal compared to the rest of their lineup. Like, their lineup isn't terrible. I
mean, they've got a lot of. I mean, if you think about it, they've got him, Eric Hosmer, Ian Kinsler, who's been hurt.
I forgot about him. Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I forgot about him too. We mentioned him last week, and then you've also got like Manuel Margot. You had Franmil Reyes, who was hitting really well. I mean, you said Manny Machado. I mean, they've got such a great lineup. It just kind of seems like wrong that they're not doing well. Yeah. I mean, they've got such a great potential to be a great team.
We thought they were going to take the next step this year. I mean, granted, they are in the NL West. That is a very competitive division, obviously, with the Dodgers.
Yeah.
But you just would think they would at least contend for a wild card spot, but we won't see that for a couple more years as they are looking for a new manager at this point.
Yeah, and I mean, we're going to talk about him a little later. I love Chris Paddock. I mean, I watched him pitch against the Mets. Sure. He is probably my favorite pitcher in baseball. Obviously, that's not on the Mets, but he pitches with such a passion and he brings such a fire to the team that, I mean, you can kind of guarantee that you're going to get a great game every 5 days, but you need to get that out of at least 3 pitchers. Yeah. If you can't have 3 pitchers on your team that you can rely on to give you a win every time they go out, or at least 90% of the times they go out, you're not going to be in a good position to win.
For sure. And I mean, it's just, I don't know. Machado, 251 this year. I mean, he did hit for a lot. He left for a lot of power. 30 homers, 82 RBIs. We could probably say that this was a disappointing season for.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, if you look at his overall numbers, I mean, clearly he's under his overall in on base percentage. His home runs are really at 30 home runs is not bad, but for a guy you're paying that much, who. You would expect him to hit, especially this year with the balls being the way they are. You would expect him at like 35, even 40.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Maybe we'll see a bad time next year, but it'll be interesting to see. He could be even out of San Diego.
Yeah,
on the trade deadline next year.
That's true, and I mean, but you also have to think. I mean, it's sometimes for players it takes them a while to get used to their team. It's his first year. Maybe, I mean, you're right. Maybe next year we'll see a great little jump for him, which would, so. I mean, I've never really loved Manny Machado. He's a great player, but I mean, I think his attitude is a little bit bigger than it should be. And I think that kind of hinders my view of him, but he still is a good player. And I really think he's got the potential to be out there as one of the top in the game. Then we move on to the very last bit of news that has happened in the last week. Ned Yost, the longtime manager for the Kansas City Royals, who led them to a World Series in 2015, their first in 30 years. He was able to really bring this team to the limelight, even though they've fallen off. He is officially retiring at the end of the year, which means that we now have another team that is going to be in search of a manager at the end of this year. What's your take on this?
As a fan of the Tigers, and I see this man's work like every year, and he's just consistently a good manager. Like I don't like the Royals. They're my favorite team, obviously, but I can respect the dude. Like he's been through like the bad times, and he even, like you said, he took the Royals to a World Series, won the World Series, took him to another World Series. It was a shame they couldn't win that one. But this guy, like, I don't know, he's just one of like the more respected guys in baseball. And I wish him the best in retirement. And maybe we could see him getting a front office job in the next couple of years, like these managers somehow manage to take.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't even think of that a lot. You will see that quite often where you'll see a manager, he'll retire and he'll take a front office job. And I mean, I know all too well how he led that Royals team.
Oh, yeah.
I know a little bit too much, but I mean, he was a great manager. And even when the Mets played them this year, he managed a great game. The Royals were dead at that time. They were like 20 under, and the Mets were playing the Royals. And he put up a fight. I mean, he was putting in like 3 relievers in an inning just to have matchups. And I was like, wow. I was like, even when this guy is losing, he's still trying to put his best foot forward and lead his team to a win. And I mean, I got to give him huge props for that. He's a great guy. And I really have to appreciate what he's done. And even though he's the Royals manager, and even though I don't love the Royals, it's kind of hard to hate the Royals at this point because they're just not good anymore. Yeah. But I mean, he's a good guy, and he's one of those faces in baseball you're gonna look at for a long time.
It's hard to hate a guy that built a franchise from the way up. I mean, the first 2 years were rough for him, but then with the addition of Hosmer and Moustakas, and it was like, okay, this team could contend. And they already had Salvador Perez, Lorenzo Cain. And that team was just nasty.
Yeah, they were a great team. I mean, and it's too bad that they got rid of all their players. But I mean, if you think about it, they had one of those powerhouse teams that, I mean, it ended up being like a one and done, which was disappointing.
It is disappointing.
They had the base. I mean, yes, they had a lot of veteran pitchers, but if they built up their pitching staff, they really could have had something special. They had Mike Minor at a time. And imagine if they kept Mike Minor and had him today and they kept that team, they could still be a force. But
sure,
that'll do it for the news. We're going to get into the highlights over the last week. Tuesday, September 17th, exactly a week ago, Luis Severino, obviously star pitcher for the New York Yankees, made his season debut for the Yankees. It wasn't his best start, but it wasn't his worst either. It was a good start for your first start of the year in a team that you're expecting to make it to the World Series and you want to win. You got to come out there and you got to show up, and that's exactly what he did, especially a team that has a rotation that is lacking like that.
We'll talk about the Yankees pitching a lot throughout the show, I'm sure. We already did in the first half of the show.
Yeah.
Talk about how they're losing pitchers already. But this is huge for New York. Like I said, it's comparable. They're the only team that has a chance to beat them is the Astros. And I feel like with Luis Severino, that's their star right there. It's their star pitcher, obviously. He's their ace. And to get him back right before the playoffs is going to be huge for them. And that he can be the guy that matches up against Verlander in Game 1 of the ALCS.
Absolutely. And I mean, you also have to remember the only thing that could hurt is that if he ends up pitching, he hasn't pitched all year.
Yeah.
He hasn't faced live hitting all year. And that could end up holding him back a little bit. And that's something the Yankees do have to worry about. And that may change who they end up throwing out there in those Game 1s. I think you're right. I think he'll start Game 1 of the ALCS on one condition. I think that he pitches in the ALDS, and if he does a good job against what probably will be the Twins, because I don't think the Yankees are going to have the best record, if he does a good job in that game in the ALDS or games, I think he could get it. But I think there's a chance, just because he hasn't pitched all year, that he may fall apart, especially against such a heavy offense like the Twins have. It's very, very possible. So, I mean, it's interesting to think about.
I mean, and if he does struggle against the Twins, we could also see him take a reliever role in the ALCS or the World Series if it comes down to that. But I think he'll figure it out. He just came back. He pushed against the Blue Jays the other day, went 5 and gave up 3 hits. Not terrible. Didn't give up any runs, though.
Right.
So we'll definitely have to see, monitor his action as the season goes on.
I mean, the guy hasn't even given up a run this year. I mean, that's kind of interesting. You can't hurt him for that. So, I mean, so far going into the postseason with possibly even a 0 ERA, I mean, you can't argue with that. But it's going to be a waiting game, really, for the Yankees, just to see if he can make it work. The next thing here, we have Cavan Biggio for the Toronto Blue Jays, and what has been a disappointing season again for them. Who, I mean, this is really awesome for this guy, Cavan Biggio. He hit for the cycle against the Orioles. Yes, it's the Orioles, but I mean, still hitting for the cycle. He made it the second father-son duo to ever do so, which is awesome. I mean, you can't blame him for being really excited. He was so happy. And I mean, for the guy he had a single, double, and a home run. And typically that's what you'll see.
That's what you get.
That's what you need for the cycle. You'll look at it and you'll say, yeah, well, he needs a triple for the cycle. What else is new? So he ended up going out there. He hit one in the left center field gap, and the guy played it off the wall, bounced really far away from him, and he hustled the third. It was awesome. I mean, I watched it. It was great and good for him. I mean, this is a Blue Jays team. I mean, you look at it, you've got 3 young stars, Biggio, Guerrero, and Bichette. And all of them are, I mean, you could say they are second generation players, and they are great. I mean, I don't know who, obviously, I don't know everybody who's been a child or grandchild of a player who's made it to the big leagues. But I mean, you look this year, we've had an outburst of them. I mean, you've got Mike Yastrzemski on the Giants too.
Yeah, we'll talk about him later.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're actually talking about him next, which is pretty funny, but, that's 4 players in 1 year who made their debut who are related to directly a previous MLB star. I mean, I guess it just runs in the blood. I mean, it's got to be. It's got to be in the blood because, but I mean, we also don't know. Maybe there are kids that have been grandchildren or children of other players that just haven't made it. But I find it funny that all 3 are on the Blue Jays. It's like they saw it and they were like, all right, we're going to just take you because, it runs in the blood.
It's not bad when they're related to former and future Hall of Famers, potentially also.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a guy that, I mean, he had some of the best season, obviously. He was nothing like his dad, who was pure power hitter, Craig Biggio for the Astros. I was just, seems like an eternity ago, but.
Yeah, really.
I mean, good for this kid, honestly. Like, I mean, his dad did it too. It's just great to see. His average went up a good amount of percentage points after this game, obviously.
Yeah.
After going 4 for 4. So yeah, he's one of the kids that could be a sleeper and keep an eye, because everyone's obviously on Vlad. Everyone's been hyping him up and everything, and he's lived up to it for sure.
Yeah.
But this could be a kid that could sneak out with people next year for years to come, obviously.
Yeah, most definitely. And I mean, you look at the Blue Jays, good core. I mean, they've got a potential. I've liked the Blue Jays since 2015 when they were in the postseason. And that was when they had their glory days of Encarnacion, Donaldson. I mean, just an amazing team. And you can't argue with that. That was probably the best team they've had in years.
Mm-hmm.
And the Blue Jays obviously have a lot of history. The Joe Carter walk-off home run. I mean, who could not know about that one? So, I mean, awesome things that you've seen in the Blue Jays. It seems like they've got a magical young core coming up. The next thing we've got going on here, we just mentioned him. Mike Yastrzemski hit a home run at Fenway Park in the house his father reigned in a game where he got a standing ovation. He was able to meet up with his grandfather. I mean, obviously, if he's your grandfather, I'm sure you've spent a lot of time with him over the years. But yeah, so I mean, it's great for him. I mean, he came up and they said it on the, I don't remember if it was the Red Sox or Giants, but they said anytime a Yastrzemski is going to walk into this house, they're going to get a standing ovation. And that's really what he did. And he stepped up to the plate, and I think it was his second at bat. He stood up and he hit a home run dead center. I mean, first of all, it's hard to hit a home run dead center at Fenway, but he crushed it. And when he hit it, I mean, it was one of those goosebumps moments that if you're like a true baseball fan, I mean, that was like, wow, that's really cool. Mm-hmm. And obviously us, we don't know this. We don't know the Yastrzemski days, but we hear about him.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. So we don't know, like it's not like we sat there and we watched it, but it's cool to sit and look and say, wow, you've got one of these players who is related to one of the greats, and he's out here and he's hitting a home run. And being a Giant, I mean, the Giants, they don't really have a history with the Red Sox necessarily. So, I mean, it's cool. You can root for him and you could say this is really cool.
This kid is good.
Definitely.
Obviously, grandson of Carl Yastrzemski, who's a legend. It's a shame we never got to watch him, but hey, we get to watch his grandson now. And this kid is good, man. He's a rookie, obviously, this year, batting .275, 20 home runs, 53 RBIs. I mean, it runs in the blood, like you said, obviously. I don't know what happened with his dad. Maybe he just didn't pick up the baseball gene. Yeah. But this grandson is something special, and he's something to keep an eye on for years to come, obviously. I don't know. For me, he's just exciting to watch, obviously. Like, obviously, any Yastrzemski is exciting to watch. But this guy just has something about him. Like, I don't know. He'll be good for years to come. I'm just excited for him.
Yeah, I mean, it's anytime you see one of these second or third generation players, it's like I want to see him succeed because maybe we'll have another Yastrzemski of our time. Yeah. I mean, obviously his numbers in his rookie year aren't what his grandfather had, but I mean, to be batting .275, he has 20 home runs, obviously because of Pete Alonso, he's going to not even be a thought in the rookie of the year category. But I mean, it's still really cool and it's good for him. It's one of those things. It's one of those deals where, I mean, he's on a Giants team that seems to be rebuilding now. He could be the core. He could be the face of that franchise, obviously, once Buster Posey leaves. So you never know. I think that would be really cool. Then we move over to the aforementioned Chris Paddock making his final start of 2019. I said it before. I'll say it again. I love this guy. He is great. I mean, just the fire he plays with. I mean, I don't know if you knew about it, but in the beginning of the year when he had the little beef with Pete Alonso over the rookie of the month, I mean, he was fired up in a game and he struck out Alonso the first time he saw him. He was hype. And then he came to Citi Field and they ended up walking him. You could see the anger in his face. I mean, I watched the video last night and you could see him because he had 3 balls on Alonso and he physically looked like he wanted to throw the ball through a brick wall, and he ended up walking him. And I mean, look, I love the way he plays. I actually got his autograph at a Diamondbacks game a few weeks ago. I was so happy about that. I'm a little bit disappointed because I didn't ask him to sign it on the sweet spot. So he signed it right under Joey Lucchesi, but I don't care. I still have Chris Paddock's autograph. But I mean, it was cool to meet him. I couldn't really talk to him because there was a boatload of fans around. But I mean, he's one of those guys. He's like, you could tell he's really confident in himself.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, he is like, it's not even like cocky. It's like he knows he's good, and deservingly so.
Yeah, I mean, this guy looks like he's been in the league for about 5 or 6 years now.
Absolutely.
I mean, he's pitching. I don't want to compare him to anyone great, but he's pitching like with a little Max Scherzer-esque. I want to say fire. Like,
yeah, absolutely.
Like Max gets fired up, Paddock gets fired up. It's like very nice to see.
Oh, that's right. You know the Max Scherzer fire. That's true. I forgot.
It's very
tough topic.
It's there. I don't know how long I can keep it in there for, but
it'll last probably.
It'll wash away a little bit. But this guy, 9-7, 3.3 ERA, not bad for a rookie. And like we said, this Padres team hasn't underperformed. But this is one of the bright spots for them this season and for their future, obviously. If they can keep Machado, if they can keep Hosmer, this team, obviously, like I hope it happened this year, but hopefully next year we'll see them contend for a wild card spot.
And take a look at that whip. That's a .98 whip.
Yeah,
that's amazing. I'm about to check Jacob deGrom's whip right now, but I honestly think, I mean, I may be wrong, but I think he has a lower whip than Jacob deGrom does. He does. Wow. He has a lower whip than Jacob deGrom. Jacob deGrom has a .99 whip. deGrom is in 31 games. Obviously, he's only in 26, but
that's still comparable, obviously.
Chris Paddock has a lower whip than Jacob deGrom. Wow. That's really crazy. I thought about that. I don't remember what deGrom's whip was last year. I'm also about to pick that up, but I mean, his whip last year, finding it, was .91. So obviously you can't beat that, but a .99 whip, a 9.8 in your first year pitching.
Yeah.
I mean, that's amazing. For me, I've started to look more at whip than ERA because ERA to me, like, I mean, I've started to realize in the last year that ERA really is kind of bogus because you could have the bases loaded and then someone will give up a grand slam because they're horrible with 2 outs. And it goes to you. So that's why I don't really look at ERA anymore. I more look at whip because whip is one of those things that you can control. It's the amount of walks and hits you will have per innings pitch that you have. And to have it under 1 is awesome because that means that you're going through almost all of your innings without giving up a base runner. And that's impressive. I mean, to have a better whip than Jacob deGrom is it's absolutely spectacular. And I love Chris Paddock. I'm going to watch him for years. And I don't know if you've ever seen one of his starts, but you will when he plays the Tigers. His pitches are great. He's got a fastball. He throws a 4-seam that moves. Yeah. It moves a lot.
I've seen his highlights. He's fun to watch. I need to see him start and finish the game though.
Yeah, I mean, he threw the best start of his career against the Mets. He threw 7 innings without giving up. He gave up 3 hits and no runs. I mean, it was amazing. He was absolutely spectacular, and the guy can pitch. I mean, he has a Vulcan change, something we haven't seen in a very long time. That looks like it starts at your chest and it'll drop down to your knees. And it's like 90 miles an hour. He's got a curveball that's a work in progress, but that one, I don't know, it snaps. I mean, it'll start on the inside corner and break down and away.
Yeah, listen to the start against the Mets, May 6th, 7 2/3 inning, 4 hits, no runs, 1 walk, 11 strikeouts for a rookie. Wow, like that's something I've got. And that Mets lineup is no joke, obviously.
Well, in my defense, we were also playing very poorly at the time.
Sure, we'll give you that. It's Chris Paddock. His pitchers, Oh, that is very nice. I don't know if you guys can tell, but we like Chris Paddock a lot here.
Yeah, Chris
I
Paddock.
don't know if you guys can tell.
Great guy. And I think I just made you a Chris Paddock fan too, just from this.
In 5 minutes, I'm convinced this guy's special.
This dude is.
I knew he was like good. I just didn't know like he was good.
Yeah, I didn't know who he was first of all before this year because I don't like look over the scouts. What am I saying? The scouts, the prospects. That's the word.
Yeah.
I don't look at the prospects all the time.
Yeah.
I look at a few, like I know some that are in the minors, but I try to focus on the big leagues because I'm a big stat guy. I look at the stats, and I don't know if you play MLB The Show, but I do, and I have MLB The Show, and at the end of every single year, I go through, and if a pitcher has more than 10 innings pitched and a batter has more than 50 at-bats, I adjust every single player's stats in the game, comparing and make them realistic to how they really did. So I have analyzed everybody, and I didn't know who this guy was because obviously he hasn't pitched until this year. But man, I mean, he's really, really good.
Something special, man.
So we'll have to wait and see about that and see if he continues this reign. But I really hope so because I love him and I love the way he pitches. Next up here, after trailing 6-5 to the White Sox in the bottom of the 11th, the Twins were able to tie the game up on a sacrifice fly. Then they ended up trailing 8-6 in the 12th. They walked it off on a hit by pitch. I mean, you know the Twins and the White Sox all too well. You're shaking your head. You know them all too well. They're great teams, and they're teams that you've had to deal with for a very long time. And I mean, a walk-off hit by pitch. I mean, that's almost unacceptable.
This is probably, in a sense, that game is probably the Twins season summed up. They don't give up.
Yeah.
I've seen the Twins bad with Joe Mauer. It's a shame Joe Mauer is not on this team now, because the damage he would do for the Twins now would be remarkable. But it's nice to see the Twins that were last in the AL Central climb up year in year. Like, okay, they got Miguel Sano. What are they going to do now? They added a few people. They added a few players.
And Sano fell off for a little bit too.
He did too. Last year he was right awful. I mean, after his rookie year, he fell off, but this year he's bounced back. Obviously, he's probably been the main reason why the Twins have been so good. And it's just nice to see them finally contend. They will win the AL Central this year, without a doubt.
Yeah, and I mean, the Twins. I said it before the year. I mean, they're special, and I saw it. I saw their team. It was before the year. I looked at every team, and I looked at all 30, and I went through the lineups, and I said, man, the Twins have a really good base. I mean, people are really overlooking the Twins. And a lot of people said the Indians are going to run away with it. And I said, no, I think the Twins are going to put up a fight. I still thought that the Twins were going to did I just say the Indians are going to put up a fight? I don't know. I think,
yeah,
I think I did. But the Twins were a great team. And I still didn't think they were going to win the division, but I knew they would be a top team in the wild card. And they ended up surpassing that. And now they're probably going to win the division. So very, very impressive and really cool to see that they are succeeding, and a walk-off hit by pitch. I mean, it's pretty cool, especially because they were down 8-6.
Yeah.
I mean, that's pretty cool. I mean, trailing 2 times in extra innings to come back and to get it is really, really awesome. So good for them. And then we move over to Wednesday, September 18th, going day to time. Obviously, Mark Canha for the Oakland Athletics. It's a walk-off double to win 1-0 over the Kansas City Royals. I mean, a 1-0 win any day is pretty cool. But Mark Canha with obviously a huge walk-off double in the Athletics who are trying to make a push for the wild card race, knocking down the Royals who, I mean, I don't know about you, but because I've been getting these highlights, like I have to go through every single day and I have to look at the teams that are playing, and I'm looking at it and the Royals are like, they're putting up a fight against everybody. Because I have to go through the scores every single day. And it seems like 9 times out of 10, the Royals are like a run down or 2 runs down at the end of the game, or they're beating good teams. And I'm like, wow, I'm like, is this a sign that the Royals are actually like underratedly good? I mean, I don't know, but I didn't really expect to see that. And to be able to put up a fight against the Athletics and the Athletics offense that they have, the Royals got to feel pretty good about themselves. I mean, even though they lost 1-0, still just a huge walk-off for the Athletics, obviously.
For sure. I mean, like you said, the Royals putting up a fight against these teams. I don't know if it was with the Ned Yost retirement. I don't know if they suddenly decided to start playing baseball again. But I don't know. This team has an exciting future, obviously. They'll get a decent draft pick in this upcoming draft, and they'll have to see like how their farm system is, and they can see if they can possibly contend every couple of years. It's funny to see the Tigers and the Royals at the bottom of the division now when they were the top dogs for so long.
Yeah, really.
It was always between the Royals and the Tigers, and that's nice to see the Twins finally take that division crown. Hopefully, we can see the White Sox in this century.
I think they will. I really do. I mean, they have a great future. I mean, they have a lot of young players, but that's true. The AL Central's always just been up in the air. It's been between a few teams, and then it just changes every couple of years.
The Indians won the World Series a couple of years ago, and I mean, it's the White Sox turn now to take that next step, I feel like. But shout out Mark Canha, obviously, for that walk-off double, that 1-0 win. That was pretty exciting to watch.
Yeah, most definitely. And it's always cool to watch a walk-off. I mean, walk-offs are one of the coolest things in baseball,
sure.
And especially in such an important pennant race. Then we move over to the New York Yankees, and for me, this is CC Sabathia making his last regular season start in the Bronx. The main reason for that is because he is probably going to end up being in the bullpen. However, this is also, I don't know if this is before or after Domingo Germán was placed on administrative leave, but you never know. He may end up getting in the rotation because of that. But CC made his last regular start, had a standing ovation. I mean, the Yankees seem to always do something special with their teams. I mean, they have the guy come out, and it's always like really cool. But
just how they did for Mariano Rivera. They brought out CC and Derek Jeter.
Yeah, and Andy Pettitte. I mean, obviously being a Mets fan, I don't like the Yankees, but I mean, it's still cool to watch. I didn't really watch it at all. I just watched him walk off the mound. But I was on Instagram the other day, and I saw people that were saying that he's like a Hall of Famer, and I'm like, I don't think
you don't think so?
I don't think he should be. I really don't.
I was going to ask you if you think he is. I definitely think he should be considered for it.
I think he should be considered, but I mean, I don't think the guy's had the stats that are necessarily good enough to get him to a Hall of Fame. I mean, I don't know. I mean, overall, his last few years in the Bronx have not been great.
No.
He's fallen off a lot. He's done poorly he's been up and down in the postseason, but I just think, I mean, obviously I could be skewed because I'm a Mets fan.
I think that's where it's coming from. I feel like it is. Because this guy, I mean, finished second in the AL Rookie of the Year to only like Ichiro Suzuki. I don't know who that guy is, but that's besides the point. He won the Cy Young Award in 2007. We forget how good he was on the Indians. Led that team to the AL Central. He was dynamite in his prime for the Yankees. He was probably their ace of the South for years. I mean, this guy's been in the playoffs more times than a lot of other players have, and it's just he's won the World Series a few times. I mean, I don't know. I'd say Hall of Famer.
All right. Well, I mean, look, I'm always open to getting, obviously getting other inputs, and I think I could be very skewed because I am a Mets fan, but I don't know.
Why do you think he's not a Hall of Famer?
Well, I mean, I don't have his stats pulled up, but I will do that right now. But I mean, overall, I just think that, I mean, he to me is a very similar player to Johan Santana in that he had a lot of years on another team where he was really, really great, came to this other team that he's now on and pitched very well and then fell off. I mean, to me, it's the same thing as Johan Santana. I mean, Santana he started off with, I think it was the Twins, and then he was on the Twins, pitched really, really well there, came to the Mets, was great. There were no hitter. But I mean, you look at CC's career stats, obviously a 3.74 ERA is not great for career stats, but I mean, if you look at his last years, I mean, the Indians were obviously his prime. I mean, he had a high ERA in those years, but he hasn't had an ERA below 3 in his career, except for one time in 2008. And he has a lot of years where he had an ERA over 4, which is not very good. I mean, you look at his last year's 2019, 4.99, 2018, 3.65. And the highest he got was in a year where he didn't really play a lot. He only had a few starts, but it was 5.28. I mean, for me, like I said, I don't look at the ERA, but I think in this case, it is important to look at because sometimes if you're just having a consistently high ERA and his whip has never been low. I mean, we said Jacob deGrom 0.91. His whip, it was the lowest whip he ever had. It looks like was 1.11, which is a solid 20 points higher than Jacob deGrom. And I mean, look, I mean, he could be considered maybe a late term Hall of Famer, depending on, because obviously, as players get considered for the Hall of Fame as the years go on, so you'll see players get in their 6th or 7th year on the ballot. For me, I think there's no question he won't get in his first year. I don't think there's any question about that. If he's going to get in, I think it'll be later in his time. I mean, you look, Edgar Martinez almost didn't even get in the Hall of Fame.
That is true. It's hard to get in the baseball Hall of Fame.
Yeah, it is. I mean, Edgar Martinez, this guy who we know is one of the top third basemen in baseball. I think he got in, I don't know if it was his 9th or 10th year. I mean, they have high standards, and we just saw Randy Johnson get in, and I don't even think he wasn't even unanimous. And to me, Randy Johnson's one of the best pitchers in baseball.
Yeah.
So for me, I mean, just looking at, I mean, obviously they've been letting in a lot of players lately, but that's also because you've had a lot of great players that have retired recently. But for me, I don't know. I mean, I think once he's possible to be voted for, I think it'll be interesting to see maybe how people look at him at the time. I mean, you've got his highlights up here. He's gotten 1 Cy Young. He's a 6-time All-Star. But I mean, look, it's up in the air. I mean, it's cool to have another opinion, and I'm glad that I have that, because maybe I'll open my eyes one day and be like, man, maybe he does deserve it. But I had a lot of people yelling at me on social media because I said I don't think he deserves to be a Hall of Famer. People are like, what are you talking about? And I'm like, I don't know. I just don't think he should be. But I mean, it's just one of those debates. I mean, the Hall of Fame is obviously a huge debate for everybody. I mean, with certain players that just haven't gotten in yet that people think should. So we'll have to wait and see.
I just think we've been fooled. I mean, obviously, this man is nowhere near in shape as a baseball player. He should have retired about 2 or 3 years ago. And I feel like if he would have retired 2 or 3 years ago, he'd have been
probably
by most a Hall of Famer. These last 2 or 3 years, you can make a case. Okay, the ruined his Hall of Fame resume.
I think that's what it is. I think if he retired a couple of years ago, I probably would have said he would have been. But I think just because these last 3 years, I mean, you had the alcohol thing coming up where it came out that he was like a raging alcoholic. I mean, you've got guys who aren't getting into the Hall of Fame because they're suspected to have been doing steroids. I mean, you never know, but I just think these last couple of years may have hurt his chances.
Yeah, I mean, but we look at his highlights though. Like, I mean, I'm not saying his highlights are like worth like a unanimous Hall of Fame. I'm not saying they should even be. I think he should be considered.
Yeah, I agree.
I mean, 6-time All-Star. He won the World Series in 2009, and you can even say in that, that team was led by Derek Jeter. You had players like Mariano Rivera, this and that. But no, he won the ALS MVP in 2009 also. Won the Cy Young in 2007. He's an MLB wins leader in 09 and 10. He led the league in shutouts for 2 years, and he's a member of the 3,000 Strikeout Club.
That's true. But I mean, look, I don't know. We'll have to wait and see.
It's nothing like it's not like you're wrong, I'm right.
Yeah, absolutely. It's
like an opinion based.
Yeah, of course. And I mean, like I'm looking at this and I'm saying, well, I mean, only one of those things is after 2010, too, which is also something to think about. I mean, obviously a great player in his prime. I don't know, but
it'll be interesting to see.
Yeah, most definitely. There's a lot of those guys where it's like you look at it and say, man, I can't wait for this guy to be on the ballot to see how he does. Yeah. The next thing here, something that feels eerily similar to something I had to go through a few weeks ago, so I feel bad to be an Orioles fan. I mean, I do that anyway. But after trailing 10-4, the Blue Jays scored 7 runs in the top of the 9th to win the game 11-10, which was capped by a go-ahead grand slam by Randall Grichuk. For me, relatable, because I'm sure you remember the Mets losing in the bottom of the 9th after leading 10-4.
That was interesting.
It was horrible. It was
you say that.
Absolutely brutal. I mean, terrible. I mean, so I feel for the Orioles here. I feel for them. Losing 11-10, but I mean, they're the Orioles. Obviously, I'm sure they're used to losing, but this is just one of those losses that it sucks.
They're a joke. I don't know. There's not much to say about the Orioles. I mean, their attendance is obviously terrible. Who wants to go to Camden Yards these days? I mean, I just miss when they were. I don't miss when they were good, but I remember when they were good. When they were playing the Tigers in the playoffs in the ALDS. Adam Jones, Chris Davis was actually good. They just had that team that like no one used to mess with, and the Yankees would have problems against them. And now it's just like they're losing 10-4 in the bottom of the 9th. It's just like, well, I'd expect nothing less.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, and I mean, you mentioned, I mean, they had a lot of great players. They were a really good team for a long time, and they started this year off. I don't know. They were like 11-2 or something.
I know. I remember that.
And everyone was like, "What? The Orioles? Maybe they're gonna actually surprise everyone and like finish over 500." And since then, they're like 40-100. I mean, like, how are you that bad? But I don't know. I mean, to be an Orioles fan, you've kind of. I mean,
I can't talk. I'm a Tigers fan, but at least At least we know we're bad.
Yeah, I mean the Tigers have a worse record than the Orioles do.
Yes, we do.
Which is
46-109, and I'm proud of it.
Which means you're going to get the number 1 pick next year.
It does, and we already have Casey Mays in our system, which I'm really excited for.
Yeah, and you're welcome for Michael Fulmer too, because you benefited from that.
We did a little bit, but he's starting to stagger a little bit. I don't know. He got to a really good start.
You're getting more out of him than we are out of Yoenis Cespedes.
That is very true. I don't even know where that fool is anymore.
Yeah, he I don't know if you heard the story, but he broke his ankle on his ranch.
Very nice.
Yeah, very. It was great. It was especially because he had both of his heels needed surgery, and then he slipped on his ranch and broke his ankle. And he was expected to come back this summer, broke his ankle. Now he's out till next year.
I was worried to be baseball related. I'm glad it's not. Wow,
that's
imagine
even
a baseball player getting injured off the field. That's just
imagine. But that's like, could you imagine like just knowing like, man, I'm ready to come back, and then oh no, I can't play anymore. I mean, the guy hasn't played in a game since 2016. Biggest waste of money.
Clown. He's an absolute clown. He was so good on the Athletics, so good on the Tigers, pretty good on the Mets.
Yeah, for 2015 he was great, and then he got hurt, and I think he's played a combined total. I'm trying to remember. I think he's played a combined total of like 35 games in his 4-year contract that ends next year. 35 games in 3 years.
Right.
Like, what are you doing?
Pretty good. Yeah. Figure it out. He needs to get his time together, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, it's horrible. I mean, look, the guy was young when he started, but he wasn't even that young. I think he was 26 when he started playing, and he was not. He was not a young kid. I mean, he's in his 30s now. I mean, it's disappointing. But, I mean, we just went on a whole tangent from talking about the Orioles. But that'll lead us to our next point, which is Carl Yastrzemski throwing out a first pitch to his grandson at Fenway. We don't need to talk a ton about this, but it was just still cool to mention, and obviously something that you want to throw out in the highlights. It was a cool little moment to see him throw to his grandson. And how many times, I don't know if I've ever seen a guy throw out a first pitch, or anyone throw out a first pitch to a player on the opposing team.
And that being his grandson.
Yeah, I mean, I can understand that, but like, if you think about it, I mean, I don't know how many first pitches you've watched, but I've obviously seen a lot, and I'm sure you have. But I've never seen like a player on like the Braves come out and catch a first pitch for the Mets. You know, it's cool. And I watched that and I was like, man, this just feels weird because you've got like a player in road unis standing behind the plate to catch a first pitch, you know. But I mean, obviously a cool moment for the two.
I mean, we can see this with Craig Biggio and his son too. I mean, if the Astros were to play the Blue Jays, we could see Craig throw out there and have his son be right there behind the plate. That'd be pretty cool to see too. Yeah,
and I mean, it's also really cool that because obviously the when you have the interleague play, you're not going to play the same team for 3 years. So it just so happens that the Red Sox play the Giants in Mike Yastrzemski's first year. Cool thing that just happened to happen this year. So
baseball is a crazy sport.
It is. It's a magical sport. And then you've got Yasiel Puig hitting a walk-off single in the bottom of the 10th to walk off the Tigers.
Nice.
Sorry there.
Very nice. Very nice.
Yeah. I think it's funny because I don't know. Last week we had a Dodgers fan, and it was really hilarious because he was talking about when we talked about John Hicks's grand slam. He said, he said the Tigers are horrible. He said they have nothing to play for. And he was like, so, I mean, really? He was like, good for them. But now it's funny with you because you're used to it, you know? And it's really funny how we go from 1 week, we've got a guy who's been spoiled with 7 straight division champs.
Yeah.
And then you've got you who's like got like 4 straight like last place finishes even. It's just funny how you guys both look at it. And I found that really because you do look at it so differently. And you know, for you see that you lost, you're just like, yeah, whatever. We've done it too many times. I'm used to it. And then for him, if he got a walk off, he's like, this is ridiculous. This can't happen. But it's funny. So, but you got to talk about the Indian side of this.
Good for them.
Yeah. I mean, great for them. They're pushing for
needed that.
Yeah. Sure. I mean, pushing for that AL Central was not easy for them. I mean, I have liked the Indians since they played the Cubs in 2016, who you probably rooted for because it was the Indians.
I rooted for the Cubs heavily.
Yeah, I rooted for the Indians heavily because I really disliked Cub fans. But because I mean, I don't know. I don't want to go into a tangent. I'd talk about it for 20 minutes. But I really like the Indians, and ever since then, I've been a big fan. I bought a Jose Ramirez shirt, you know, and. You know, the Indians are a little sparky team, and they've got Yasiel Puig now, who is just probably the sparkiest guy on the planet. Shout out to Sparky, the ASU Sun Devils mascot. But I mean, Yasiel Puig, just great. He's a character. I mean, I don't care. I know he's on the Indians, but I think you have to agree. The guy's a character.
I mean, coming from LA, I went to like a lot of Dodger games.
Oh yeah, sure.
And I would sit in right field, and we just talked to Puig, and he's a really good guy when you're not playing against him. I mean, this man is just like, he's an absolute clown. Obviously, this and that. You can talk all the crap you want to about him, but at the end of the day, I think he's just a really good guy. He just plays baseball. I think what separates him from a lot of other players is his enthusiasm.
Yeah, he
plays with emotions. He does his thing, and he obviously he's just a great guy to be around. I feel like if you're not playing against him, obviously.
Yeah, really, and I mean, everyone's going to remember him for his fight that he had in the beginning of the year this year against the Pirates when he was being traded, which was hilarious. But for the Indians, big win for them, and you got to give them huge props for that.
Now they're half a game out of the wild card.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to talk about the wild card a little bit later, but obviously we're getting pretty deep into this one. So let's I think we can speed through the rest of these.
Yeah, for sure.
But Garrett Cole reaching 300 strikeouts for the first time in his career, and the first Astros pitcher since 1988, which is actually interesting, because that means that Verlander hasn't done it since being on the team. But for Garrett Cole, a guy who is in the Cy Young race right now, most people really have to agree that Verlander's probably going to win it. But for me, Garrett Cole, I've seen him play a little bit with the Pirates. He's a good player. I mean, he's a great pitcher, and I think he's one of those guys who will be a star of this franchise when Justin Verlander goes away.
I mean, this Astros, how do you hit around this Astros staff? I mean, you have Verlander at game 1, you Cole game 2, you have Greinke game 3, you have and then a Astro will win the Cy Young Award when it's all said and done. Most likely will be Verlander. I think the no-hitter against Toronto did it for him. But Cole had Cy Young numbers also. If Verlander wasn't Verlander,
yeah, any other year,
Cole would have won the Cy Young. And we could see Cole win the Cy Young for years to come, obviously. It's just Verlander is Verlander. But Astro will win the Cy Young when it's all said and done.
Yeah, most definitely. So good year for the Astros.
Oh, for sure.
And then we go over to Thursday, September 19th, a good year for this guy, Ronald Acuna Jr., hitting his 40th home run, obviously in the chase for 40-40. I don't know if he's going to get there, but he will be playing the Mets in the last season of the year. The team who has given up the most stolen bases in baseball by more than 40. So if he's going to get it, that's probably the time. So I may be able to witness history on the bad side, but still, Ronald Acuna Jr., obviously I've been seeing him play all year. You got to see him play 2 times this year when they played the Tigers, but he's a really great player coming off of his Rookie of the Year season. I mean, it's amazing to come off of your Rookie of the Year season and do even better. I mean, it's almost unheard of, because you hear the sophomore slump. You know, Michael Conforto, 2015 came out. He was amazing in the postseason. And then the next year, he got sent down to the minors because he wasn't playing well enough.
Miguel Sano, Jock Peterson, those guys all suffered from the sophomore slump. I mean, yes, we've seen their careers come pick back up, but for Ronald Acuna, it can only get better for him. We've seen this guy, Rookie of the Year, obviously. This guy's in contention for the NL MVP. Sort of, kind of, actually, no, it's Bellinger, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But for sure, I mean, he has put up great numbers all year. Someone even, I forget who said it, but someone said he will be the Mike Trout of the NL, which is probably like one of the highest praises you can ever get.
Yeah, absolutely. So good for Ronald Acuna. I mean, obviously for me, I don't hate the Braves. Like I do, I try and stay away from such powerful words on something like this, but like the Nationals, you know, I have different feelings about them, because the Braves, I didn't watch them kill the Mets in the 90s. When I started watching them, they were okay. And, you know, I mean, obviously I saw Chipper Jones blow the Mets to pieces for this final few years of his career. But I mean, I really have nothing against the Braves. I'm going to be rooting for them in this postseason if they go against, they're going to be going against the Cardinals, so I'm probably going to root for them. But, I mean, it's going to be interesting for the Braves to have such a bright spot in their future. Then we move over to something that we don't really need to spend a ton of time on, right? The Yankees, they clinched the division.
Great.
Cool. Yeah, we knew that was going to happen. Yep. So we're just going to move on from that. I'm sorry for the people watching the video. You just got to see a 3-second clip of the Yankees clinching the division, but it's okay. As we're moving on to Austin Hayes, who did something a lot cooler, robbing Vladimir Guerrero Jr. of a home run. And then the Blue Jays, he robbed the home run, but not only did he just rob any other home run, it was a home run that would have made it back to back to back.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. So that was really cool. Austin Hayes, I mean,
Goddamn.
in what was a horrible stretch of at-bats, he ended it in a positive note. That's probably the best way you can end a back-to-back home run stretch. So robbing him with a home run, it turned that frown upside down. I could tell you that much.
For sure. Shout out to him. Great play.
Yeah, so then we move over to the beginning of what was the best series in Cardinals history. After trailing 4-1, the Cubs were able to score 3 runs in the bottom of the ninth off of Carlos Martinez, the now closer for the Cardinals. And the Cubs then, after tying that game, Matt Carpenter in the top of the 10th for the Cardinals hit a home run, led to a win for the Cardinals 5-4. And the Cubs fell out of a playoff spot for the first time in months. I mean, this was, I don't know if you saw the rest of the series, which we will get to obviously in a bit. But this was a crazy game. And Matt Carpenter, who has feasted at Wrigley over the last few years, clearly has been taking advantage. Took advantage of the beleaguered Cubs bullpen and the beleaguered Cubs team. Very great game for them.
For sure. I mean, this Cardinals team really, I mean, they might as well, they're close to clinching the division. They've just been consistently good for years. Matt Carpenter's been, I think, he will go down as one of the best Cardinals in history. Obviously Pujols and a couple other players, but this man's been a rock for them, and it's cool to see him do it against a division rival as the Cubs, who the Cubs have been giving them troubles for years, and now they might not even make the playoffs. They're 4 games back of the wild card.
Yeah, and I mean, for the Mets being 5 out, I mean, it feels like our season's done.
You think so?
Oh, yeah. No, there's no question about it. I did the math.
I think you accepted it.
Yeah, I did the math yesterday, and the Brewers would have to go 0-6, and the Mets would have to go 5-1 for the rest of the year for the Mets to even have a chance. And the Brewers play the Reds and the Rockies for the rest of the year. And because of the Nationals losing, the Mets would have to win every game, and the Nationals would have to lose every game from here on out, and the Nationals won today. So it's pretty much it for the Mets, but it's okay. Look, we were 11 games under 500. We were dead. We are now guaranteed to finish at or above 500 this season, which is a miracle. We made up those 11 games. No thanks to you guys who really killed us. I think you won 2 out of 3 against the Mets, which was...
That's when you guys were rolling, too. I was surprised.
Yeah, that was horrible. That probably was one of the lowest points of the season. I was so disappointed that we lost to the Tigers. Jacoby Jones had the best series of his life.
He did. Yeah.
Look, I don't want to think about that. That was one of the worst series of the year. I mean, I think about that frequently, and I'm like, man, the Tigers, if we swept that series right now, we would be ahead of the Cubs. I mean, like... It's horrible. Whatever. We're gonna go back to the Cubs, obviously, a lot more. Then we go to Friday, September 20th on a high note for the Mets. Pete Alonso hitting his 50th. He hasn't hit a home run since, so hopefully his luck will change. But on the search for the rookie home run record, he is now 2 away from tying it.
Aaron Judge.
Yeah. For me, that sits at a lot more importance to me than making it to the wild card, because think about it. If Alonso doesn't beat the record, then all the Yankee fans are going to go, Judge is better than Alonso because he still holds the record. So I am really, really hoping that Alonso breaks it because, I mean, in my opinion, Alonso's better than Judge. No question. He's got better stats in his rookie year, and Judge did it in his second year in the big leagues because he didn't reach rookie status the year before. He was like a few games away. So they kind of cheated, but it's okay because if Pete can break it, I'll be a happy camper. So right now, all I want is for the Mets to finish over 500 and for Alonso to break the record. That's all I care about.
I never think he can do it. I mean, no one knew who he was until the home run derby, obviously. I knew who he was. He was hitting insane amount of numbers. I mean, this polar bear is something special. I mean...
Yes, indeed.
115 RBIs, 50 home runs. He doesn't get much better than that. He's putting up better numbers than freaking big leaguers that have been in the league for years. And wow, it's just nice to see. I mean, the average is low, but for rookie, it's not at the same time. I mean, hopefully next year he can hover around 280. That'd be a little more respectable. But yeah, in my opinion, he's better than Judge. He does more things that impact the team than Judge does, and I feel like Judge is in the heart. He's in Yankee Stadium also.
Yeah, that's also something to think about.
Pretty easy to hit a home run there. And
Citi Field is not an easy home run park.
It's not. And from at 50, I mean, he obviously hasn't hit 50 in all at Citi Field, but he's in a majority of them there.
Yeah, so And also something to think about is they are playing the Marlins and the Braves for the rest of the year. The two teams that he has the most home runs against in baseball. He actually kills the Braves. So that's something to think about. He is in a little bit of a slump. Petey's kind of chasing a little bit, but you know what? I think he'll get it straight. All you got to do, throw him 3 mistakes and he'll have the record. That's all I want. I mean, the guy is raw power. You obviously saw it in the home run derby where he scared me to death because I thought he was going to lose in the first round to Santana, who was horrible. But I mean, the guy has hit line drives that look like solid line outs for home runs. It's crazy. So I'm happy to watch Pete every day.
Oh, for sure.
I've talked about it, I think, every week on this podcast, how I love Pete Alonso. The kid right now with 50 home runs, that means that in 12 years, if he keeps this pace, he will have 600 home runs in 12 years of his career. That is nuts, which means that he could break the record. So that would also require him to hit 50 every year, which is probably not going to happen. But I have faith in my Petey. I think he could do it. So we move on here to another really cool thing. Willy Adames for the Rays in a huge game for them, walking off the Red Sox in the bottom of the 11th, which eliminated the Red Sox from playoff contention, which meant that for the 19th straight year, we are not going to have, well, for the, a repeat champion. For the Red Sox, just a disappointing year, a horrible year for them. They are right now at the same exact record the Mets are. I am proud of my Mets for doing as good as the Red Sox in their year after the World Series. Heck yeah. But there was also news that came out today that the Red Sox want to trade Mookie Betts, which would be the stupidest thing they would ever do in their history. But on another note, Willy Adames, huge walk-off for the Rays, who are looking to make it to the playoffs. They are half a game over Cleveland in probably now what is the most exciting race down the stretch.
Tampa Bay, you can do it. I don't want to see another AL Central team in the playoffs. I mean, it'd be cool to see. Obviously.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I didn't even think of that.
But I just have too much hate for the Indians. I just I can't fathom to see them in the playoffs.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, no, they're not doing it.
So you're hoping for the Rays to pick it up. I think the Rays are going to make it. I think the Indians are good. I don't know. I don't think this is their year. I feel bad for them, but I don't think it's going to happen. So then we move over to another thing, the Braves clinching the NL East for back-to-back seasons. We already talked about the Braves, so we don't really need to talk about them again. But good for the Braves. It's cool to see them in the playoffs yet again after the Nationals won it in 2017 and 16, and then the Mets won in 2015. So that'll be cool to look at as we go in the future to see maybe the Braves will have the stretch that they had in the 90s. Then we move over to Saturday, September 20th. I don't know if you saw this, but I was watching this game live. I was watching this game. The Cardinals homered on the first 2 pitches that Craig Kimbrell threw in the 9th inning. I saw that Yadier Molina hit a home run to tie the game, and I turned the game on. The second it happened, Paul DeJong, he threw a fastball right down the middle. He crushed it. I got up and I started screaming because I don't want the Cubs to make it, and I wanted the Mets to pass the Cubs. And I was like, oh my God, this is crazy. And it was really, the Cubs fans were sitting there like, wow, we just blew another game. And they went to the bottom of the 9th and they lost. And I was like, wow, this has just been an amazing start to the series for the Cardinals, who had only won 1 game at Wrigley all year. And they're in the division, so they played there a lot. Yeah. And the Cardinals had never swept a series at Wrigley Field ever. And this is a 4-game series. We'll talk about it a little later, but they end up going on to sweep all 4 games, which knocked the Cubs out of the playoffs and really kind of clinched the NL Central for the Cardinals. So great for them. But, I mean, the Brewers are still right there, but I still think it's going to happen. But then we go over to the Rays again, back-to-back days for walk-offs with them. Nate Lowe hit a walk-off 2-run homer in the 11th. I don't know if you've seen the video, but I recommend you look it up right now because he hit the ball. It was a line drive down the left field line in the exact same spot Longoria hit it. It seemed like one of those things that was just absolutely crazy. And for the Rays, I'm sure they're getting flashbacks right now because you just watched the video and
I did.
It's seriously like you watch it and I thought immediately Evan Longoria 2010.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the game, what was the game, 163?
No, I think it was 162.
Oh, really? Okay. Then they won game 163 after that. Then.
I don't remember, to be honest. I just remember all I remember about that because I think that was my first year I ever watched baseball full time, which is even weirder because that happened on that year. I just remember that it was the Red Sox, Yankees, and the Rays, and I think the Rays knocked the Yankees out, and I think it actually did go down to the. I don't remember, but still. For the Rays, gotta feel awesome to have this kind of throwback feel, especially because they were wearing their throwback uniforms.
Rays, yeah. So now that adds more of an excitement for them, and hopefully they can use that momentum to clinch the wild card. It'll be tough though, because the Rays open up against the Yankees, and Cleveland goes to Chicago. It's gonna be tight. It's probably one of the best finishes we're gonna have all year.
Yeah, definitely. I think this is going to be. Really, it's going to be crazy, especially because of the AL wildcards just making it a lot more interesting.
Yeah, for sure.
Then we move over to Sunday, September 21st. Not a lot of highlights left. We have Eric Thames hitting a clutch 2-run homer in a huge game for the wildcard race because Eric Thames came out. The Brewers ended up winning this game 4-3. The Mets, I think they lost. Yeah, wait, this was, I don't know, whatever. I just know that it was Sunday. I believe the Mets won. Yes, they did. But if the Brewers lost this game, the Mets could gain ground on them. The Cubs lost, so that pushed the Cubs even further back. I mean, this is a huge game because the Nationals lost, and it made the Brewers and the Nationals tied for first place in the wild card. And the Brewers, who I think I saw a number today, they were like 7 back from the Nationals at one point last month, and now they made it all the way back. I mean, look. The Mets were 11 games under and had to surpass 8 teams, and they did that too. So this has just been a crazy year of comebacks, of late season pushes. And for Eric Thames, a guy who I liked when he came up in 2011 with the Blue Jays, I mean, he went to Korea for a few years. I forgot that he even existed, came back, killed it with the Brewers in, I think, 2017. And now, I mean, he's back in the limelight. I mean, it's separating men from boys. I believe that was his exact quote. So very, very cool for him and a great moment.
I mean, this Brewers team is playing for their captain, their leader, and their MVP. I mean, and I even talked about it before. I mean, if this team can make it to the NLDS or CS, we could probably see Yelich come back.
No, he was the surgery. He's not. They were even worrying that he may not be back for spring training next year.
Really?
Yeah.
I did not hear that.
Yeah, no,
there was reports that he could come back, but I guess not.
No, he's officially done. It's a long time to get that kneecap back. So, yeah. So the Brewers. But I mean, they've got some magic. I mean, I don't know what it is, but they've only lost 2 games since losing Yelich. I mean, it's almost as if they were being held back. It's weird. I mean, like if you think about that, it's like, wow, like they're doing better without Christian Yelich. I just don't get it. But I mean, look, it gives other people opportunities to shine, and you never know how they would have done in those spots throughout the year. So for the Brewers, obviously another crushing blow for me because it seems like every day when the Mets win, the Brewers just win too. And it's horrible. So that's disappointing. But then we move over to something that really made me happy because I'm a big George Springer fan. He hit 3 home runs in a game where the Astros clinched the American League West and Verlander recorded his 28th win. So just a big game all around for the Astros. And I mean, I said it last week on the podcast, but obviously you didn't hear it. I predicted George Springer's World Series MVP back in 2017 before it even happened, and he had been having a horrible postseason. I said, I think George Springer's going to bounce back. So ever since then, when he won the MVP, I've been a big George Springer fan. So awesome to see. He's a great guy. He's one of those faces in baseball. You can't hate him. He's a great dude. Because he's got his stutter and he's made that be a kind of not even a trademark, but he's using that as motivation for little kids to kind of, get over some of their, social problems that they have. And he's a great guy. And I love George Springer.
Yeah. One of the biggest faces in baseball, obviously. Like I would say Trout is, and then you could even go down the line and say even though like it could be Springer, and for the future it would be big for him, for even like you said to advocate for kids that are going through things like this, and he's just gonna be that role model for these kids that have social problems, like you said, and it's just big for baseball, and for him to succeed, it goes beyond the mound.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we move over to another thing. We just milestone after milestone this day. Nelson Cruz hitting his 400th home run for the Twins. For you have been, even though he hasn't been on the Twins for a very long time.
You know what? I've been through all the Nelson Cruz rumors and everything. When he used to kill the Tigers in the postseason against when he was on the Rangers. He would absolutely demolish Justin Verlander, and I remember that series very well. I think Verlander threw a 102-mile-per-hour fastball down the middle, and Cruz said, I'm just gonna rake this one. And I remember the Rangers even went on to beat us in that series, and I just remember like Nelson Cruz, I hate that guy. But now it's cool to see he's in our division now, and he's thriving with the Twins, and he's just a good guy, I guess. But
I guess. But yeah, I mean, it's for a guy to hit his 400th home run, it's pretty cool, and it's a good milestone. For me, I mean, you talk about Hall of Fame. We talked about that before. I think there's a possibility.
Yeah.
Because if you think about it, just some great numbers over his whole career with the Rangers, doing really well. I mean, he's led the team to a lot of great things, and he's led a lot of teams to success. And 400 home runs is no joke, especially for the Twins, who really needed him to step up. So good for him. That was a late off-season signing too. I mean, I remember a lot of teams were looking at him. The Mets even looked at him, and people were like, he's old. He's not going to do well. And he's actually done really great for the Twins, even though he hasn't been playing every day. So that's a huge bat to have off your bench, especially in the postseason with that kind of experience.
For sure.
And then we move over to the Cardinals. They are back again. They scored 2 in the top of the 9th to beat the Cubs 3-2 in a 4-game sweep that really just killed the postseason hopes for the Cubs.
Yeah.
I mean, they got it on a sac fly, and I don't even remember how they got the other run. But I was elated to see that the Cardinals, they swept the Cubs in a 4-game series at Wrigley Field, where they have done so well all year. The Cubs have the best home record in baseball, and they just got swept in 4 games, the most important 4 games of their year. I mean, take that, Cubs. You swept us in our 3 most important games of the year when we played you. It's time for a little bit of payback. So,
very nice.
So look for the Cubs. I mean, just a heartbreaker. And for the Cardinals, great for them, especially with the Brewers surging the way they are.
Yeah.
You've got to try and – I mean, if the Cardinals didn't sweep this series, the Brewers would be breathing down their necks.
That's true.
So good for the Cardinals. And obviously some really huge things for them. We're going to talk about them yet again in the next day. But before that, we will go to Hyunjin Ryu hitting a home run.
Nice.
Big home run. And
Nice.
I mean, I feel like a lot of people are hyping this up a lot more. When they called it in the game, I mean, I think I'm a little spoiled because I'm a Mets fan, and as you know, we have so many pitcher home runs.
Oh yeah,
but
you're right.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can't relate because you're a Tigers fan, but when you look, I watched the video and the announcer was so excited. I was like, what? I was like, I mean, I get it. It's the end of his career. And I guess it could have been maybe a Bartolo Colon-ish moment, because maybe they've been saying like, he's got a good swing if he puts a good wood on the ball. Cause that's what they said for Colon for years on the Mets. They said he's got a great swing. He just doesn't see the ball. I mean, if he could put good wood on the ball, he can hit a home run. So, I mean, for me, I don't know how exciting this really was, but obviously that's great because there were a boatload of Korean reporters and stuff afterwards that were going nuts after this. So, I mean, obviously a great moment for him. It's cool overall. I feel like, I don't know why it's being so hyped up. Maybe I'm just missing something, but I mean, it's a really cool moment.
I think it has to do with also he's pitching out of his mind this year.
Yeah.
I mean, he's stepped up for the Dodgers, obviously, in that staff. I mean, he could be considered. I mean, he started in the All-Star game this year.
Yeah, that's true. And that's even weirder because if you think about it, they released the most recent Cy Young poll this morning, and Jacob deGrom's running away with it now.
Mm-hmm.
And Ryu has 0 votes. He had 0 votes last week too. So 2 Cy Young polls in a row. Last week, deGrom was 4 down from Scherzer. Now Scherzer only has 5, and deGrom has the rest. So I feel bad for Hyunjin Ryu because for 99% of the season, this guy was your Cy Young until he gave up like 18 runs in a matter of a few games, which was a heartbreaker for him because he could have won his first ever Cy Young. But Hyunjin Ryu, good guy, and hopefully for the Dodgers' sake, he ends up performing in the postseason like we have seen.
I think he will. He's going through a little bit of slump right now, which will cost him Cy Young. But I think ultimately what matters for him is to win the World Series.
But the problem is, which they talked about when he played the Mets, is that the guy has always had durability issues. He's always been hurt. He's never had a full season in the big leagues, and he's getting tired. The guy he's not used to pitching full years. So I think that's his problem. He's running out of steam, and it's ending up hurting him. Then we go over to the very last thing, and for the Arizona Diamondbacks, who had a really great season, who have just, I mean, it's disappointing, especially because we're here at ASU, and we've got Chase Field right down the street. You've got a lot of Dodgers fans. I mean, there are a lot of Dodgers fans around. fans around. Man, I can't speak, but you've got a lot of D-backs fans, obviously.
For
So
sure.
Paul Goldschmidt returned to Arizona, hit a home run there. It was his first game back. Huge home run for him, especially for the Cardinals, who again are trying to win. And the Cardinals are on an absolute tear right now. So good for them. And he's not having a good year, but to come back to Arizona, homer in your first game back, that is something special. And that is definitely something to think about.
Yeah, maybe this will get him going now. He's had a down year. Obviously, we're not used to seeing this from him. When he was in Arizona, he was the guy, like an MVP candidate almost every year when he was on the D-backs. It's cool to see him in a home run back in Chase Field. But now we'll see if this gets him going for the Cardinals, but who desperately needed him for the playoffs.
Yeah, most definitely. Then we're going to move on. We're going to skip over the batting pitching leaders yet again because there's really no change in anything. Pete Alonso's still leading that home run race with 50 throughout the major leagues. Man, I want him to win that home run king. Obviously, I want him to win the home run record for the rookies, but to be the home run king, we have never had a home run king be a rookie ever. So that would be really cool. But then we're going to move over to our hitter and pitcher of the week. And overall, for me, my hitter of the week, it's going to have to be Cavan Biggio.
That's mine too.
Yeah, I mean, the guy is absolutely great. 3 home runs, 10 RBIs with a 400 batting average over the week. Obviously, that was boosted a lot by his cycle, but hitting a cycle in a week, you're really going to have a good shot at getting that player of the week. So good for Cavan Biggio. Awesome for him. We talked about him a lot before, obviously, so no need to go into detail with him. But then we go over to pitcher of the week. And I am sticking with good old Marcus Stroman on the New York Mets.
Yeah.
Had a 1.5 ERA, but what really stood out to me is that 0.94 whip. That's what separated him from me above the other players because that was one of the lower whips. And 13 and a third innings with 9 strikeouts. Not a strikeout guy, but I don't know if you know, but for me, I've been watching Stroman since he came over to the Mets. He's been a letdown. He really hasn't pitched great. He has had some disappointing starts in there, and that was it was tough to watch because he was a guy who we expected to come over and pick it up right away. I mean, if he was on, we've won a lot of the games where he has pitched, but I was so looking forward to seeing the Marcus Stroman of the 2015 playoffs where he's walking off the field screaming. And, that was what he did in his first start back at Citi Field when he was playing the Nationals. He played in such an important game. Yeah. And he actually did that one time coming off the mound, and I got goosebumps. And so that's really cool. But, I mean, for Marcus Stroman, I'm happy to see him pitching well. He's a great player. He's got so much heart in him. I mean, he's such a great player. He's already jumped out as like a leader on the team. When someone hits a home run, he's like the first player out of the dugout, and he's brand new. So I'm happy to see Stroman do well.
Yeah, so speaking of the Nationals, actually, my pitcher of the week is Patrick Corman. This man pitching against 3 playoff teams in back-to-back starts, but for the week, pitched against the Cardinals and the Phillies, went 6 innings in both those starts, allowing 3 hits and 5 hits. The walks are a little concerning, 4 walks, but you got to give it to him for 11 strikeouts and then 6 strikeouts. He's not pitcher of the week. Former D-back, it's nice to see him play on a contending team now, and it'll be interesting to see how he does in the postseason. Yeah, most definitely, especially for a National League 3-headed monster who I really hope don't make it far in the playoffs because they have still never won a playoff series. And if they win the wild card, I don't know if people are going to say that they've won a playoff series, but you never know. So we'll have to wait and see. That's actually very interesting. So yeah, we'll have to wait and see. But that is going to be something interesting to think about. I've said it before that I think the Mets are the only team who could possibly knock them down in the wild card because they have Scherzer going on the mound. You're not going to beat Max Scherzer unless you have a better pitcher, and that's what the Mets have. And none of the other teams have that. The Brewers don't have a starting pitcher to beat Max Scherzer in a million years. So that's why I think the Nationals now are probably going to run away with that. So that covers our wild card talk for later for the National League. But I mean, getting over the team of the week, I've got a lot of young names on here, except for the first one. We go off with catcher. Yeah, Yadier Molina, batting .357 with 2 homers and 7 RBIs. He carried the Cardinals throughout that 4-game set with the Cubs. Huge series for him. Obviously, playing in the really end of his career. We don't know how many years he's got left. We grew up watching this guy play. Yeah. And, I mean, it'll be great to see him play in the playoffs yet again. Maybe he can step up and do great things because I remember in the last playoff he was in, I actually don't remember if he did well or not. I think he actually did poorly, which is why it'll be cool for him to get that second chance. For sure. And then we move over to first baseman Miguel Sano. My first baseman is Cody Bellinger because I switch some things around, but yeah.
Yeah, so for me, I think Miguel Sano, he is a first baseman and third baseman, but 4 home runs and 11 RBIs in a week is pretty cool. I mean, he had that grand slam that we talked about before. He's a good player. I mean, the guy can hit. He is a great hitter. And like you said before, had that sophomore slump. He's back at it again. He's hitting really well. And man, it's cool to watch this guy play. So for you, Bellinger, I mean, that's a pretty good pick.
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, it's nice having the MVP as one of your player of the week. Average is a little down, hitting 250 though. But all around, his on base percentage was pretty nice, 318. Didn't have the best week, I would say, but it's still pretty worth noting. He did hit a grand slam last night, I'm pretty sure.
Oh yeah,
which I think cemented it for me. So yeah, all around great player, MVP obviously, great young stud.
Yeah, most definitely. And then for second base of the week, for us both going to have to be Kevin Biggio because of that player of the week.
Yep.
So we could just skip over that easily and go over to third base, where for me, I gave it to Miguel Rojas, who clearly solidified that last night with his game against the Mets. He doesn't have a single home run in this week, but he's batting .320 with 7 RBIs. And out of the third baseman, because I gave Sano to first base, there really wasn't anybody there. I mean, you said you have Sano, but
there we go.
Yeah, and I mean, yeah, that's true. I didn't even think of that. Both Miguel's. But so Miguel Rojas, we mentioned him earlier. He's had a great week. So if he can be a nice core for this Blue Jays, what am I talking about? The Marlins in the future. It'll be really nice to see. Then we go over to shortstop, batting .500 this week, Corey Seager.
Oh, yeah, he actually was named player of the week in the MLB, too.
Yeah, so, I mean, a great week for him. He had a .524 on-base percentage with 2 homers and 7 RBIs. But anytime you're batting over .500, you're going to be on this list. There's no question about it.
I actually went with Jonathan VR. I didn't even see your stats. My fault. But yeah, 265 for Baltimore, one of the lone bright spots for them. 265, 324 on base percentage, 3 home runs, 4 RBIs. Not too shabby, but I'd probably say Seager also.
Yeah, most definitely. So then we go over to the outfield. This is where we see some of the young players. Sam Hilliard on the Colorado Rockies, who is a left fielder for them, has batted .600 this week with 4 homers and 6 RBIs. But you know what the kicker is? He's only had 15 at-bats.
Oh, wow. He's
got 4 homers and 15 at-bats. That's a homer every 3 at-bats, just about, roughly. And he had 2 of them in a game against the Mets.
Wow.
So that hit home a little bit. But, I mean, he's not a full-time player. And he did this in a matter of a week. And he's getting a spot on the team of the week. That's pretty impressive.
For sure, yeah. I'm going to go with Eloy Jimenez, the young guy out of Chicago, batting 458, 40 on base percentage, 2 home runs, 7 RBIs, not too shabby. But like you said, Sam Hilliard had a great week also.
Yeah, most definitely. I mean, 2 great players there, 2 bright spots for the future of those 2 teams who are really not having great years.
Nope.
Then we go over to center field. The aforementioned Austin Hayes is going to have to be my pick. He batted .345 with 4 homers and 10 RBIs. Add that on top of the catch he made. So he's having the week of his life right now. So good for Austin Hayes. A little bit of a bright spot for the Orioles.
Yeah, I'm going to stay in the AL Central, go with Oscar Mercado. 280 this week, 333 on base percentage, 3 homers, 9 RBIs, 2 stolen bases. Man played nice this week.
Yeah, I was debating between him and Austin Hayes.
Yeah. You can't go wrong with either one.
Yeah, so 2 great young players there as well. Then we move over to Yasiel Puig is going to be my right fielder of the week. He had .500 for his batting average this week with .539. No homers, but 7 RBIs. And one of those RBIs obviously coming against the Tigers.
Mm-hmm. Well, nice.
But I mean, Puig, a great player. We talked about him a lot, so we don't need to spend a lot of time on him. It's cool. You know, we talked about these guys already, so it saves a little bit of time in there too, but it's good to talk about him, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, my right fielder was your other pick, Austin Hayes. You know, when we talk about him, he had a great week. Lone spot for the Orioles.
Yeah, so, technically, because you had VR, you've got 2 in there.
True.
But
the Orioles.
Wow, good job for the Orioles. They're a little bit over average, which is why they're not the worst team. They're not the lowest record.
Making a college students team of the week.
Yeah, wow, impressive for them. Yeah. They should really be proud of themselves. Then starting pitcher of the week. Obviously, we don't need to talk about these because we did me for Marcus Stroman, and you had Patrick Corbin. But for reliever of the week, this is where things got a little bit interesting for me. I went for Luke Bard.
Me too.
0 ERA, 0 WHIP, 5 2/3 innings pitched, 8 strikeouts. The guy pitched 5 2/3 innings for the Red Sox, didn't even give up a base runner.
Yeah.
That's impressive.
That is very.
I mean, have a weak Luke Bard. I mean, in a season that has been disappointing for the Red Sox, that is a bright spot for them, and you've really got to give it up for him. In a bullpen that seems very, very bad for the Red Sox, that could be a bright spot for their future. Then the closer of the week. Closer of the week is a little interesting. What I typically do is it's a guy who has at least one save in the week. So for me, there weren't many, but Raisel Iglesias, who I got to see in the last series when the Mets played the Reds. Sadly, he got one of his 3 saves of this week against the Mets. He pitched in 3 innings. He has a 0 ERA with a .33 whip. But in those 3 innings, he has 7 strikeouts. So he faced 9 batters, struck out, well, obviously a little more than that, but out of his 9 outs, he got 7 Ks. Pretty impressive there. For Raisel Iglesias, bright spot for the Reds. I mean, a future pitching staff that could maybe even be a World Series contender. I mean, he's a really good player.
Yeah, I'm going to go, you can't go wrong with the other one, but I'm going to go with actually Roberto Osuna.
He was the other one I was looking at.
Yeah, for Houston. Obviously, 3 saves, also 7 strikeouts, 4 innings and 1 third pitched, 0 ERA, .75 whip, which is, I mean, a little higher than Iglesias, but
which is still great.
You can go wrong with the other one.
Yeah, so 2 great players there. Then we're getting into our second to last topic. Don't have a lot to talk about anymore this week. It is the division leaders. Divisionally, we saw the Braves clinch. The Cardinals are going to clinch within the week. Well, everyone's going to clinch within the week. What am I talking about? The next podcast we have is the postseason. So the Cardinals are probably going to clinch in the next couple of days. Their magic number is down to 3. Dodgers have been clinched. The Yankees clinched this week. The Twins have a magic number of 3, but the Indians are 4 back, so that's pretty much done. And the Astros clinched this week. So divisionally, really nothing to talk about. We talked a little bit about the NL wild card, but last time we spoke, it was a much closer wild card than we expected it to be. I expected this. I really thought there was a good chance that there would be a 4-way tie. Looks right now like it's just going to be 2, which is a little disappointing because, ties are pretty cool. Yeah. I mean, last year we had 2 163s, which was very fun to watch. I think I was busy for both, so I didn't even get. Yeah, they happened when I was in school. I was like, wow, that's really disappointing. But that was fun to watch. But I mean, for me, the Mets, I don't think they're going to do it. The Cubs, I don't think are going to do it either. The Cubs play the Cardinals 3 more times this year, who killed them, and they're going to be at Busch Stadium. So
it's not going to happen.
Yeah, the Mets magic number to eliminations down to 2. The Phillies were eliminated this morning when they lost to the Nationals. The Cubs, I just talked about them. The D-backs are officially eliminated too, so it's down to 4, and it's really down to 2 in my opinion.
Yeah, it's over.
But for me, it's going to be between the Brewers and the Nationals for who gets home field.
That's true. I was about to bring that up. The Brewers open up against Cincinnati, and the Nationals open up against Philadelphia. So that'll be interesting to see if the Brewers can overtake Washington for that first NL wildcard. And
the Nationals play the Indians their last series of the year. And the Brewers are playing, oh my gosh, I'm completely blanking right now, the Rockies. So that's going to be a battle between the Brewers and the Nationals. I think that'll be fun to watch as we go down this final stretch. Yeah. But right now, we're not here to talk about the NL wildcard. We're here to talk about the American League wildcard, which is out of nowhere become. Yeah. I mean, I've known it for the last few weeks that they've been really competitive, but because the National League has kind of just been obliterated, it's time to look at this wild card and say, man, we may have a 3-way tie for first. You've got the A's who are playing really well. They're 8-2 in their last 10. The Rays, who are 6-4 in their last 10, they're falling off a little bit. And the Indians, who are 7-3 in their last 10, who are only a half back. In order, the Athletics are a 1.5 over the Rays and 2 games over the Indians. This is close. There's not many games left. This is probably going to possibly be the best wildcard finish we have seen in a while. I was going to say that this would be the best wildcard race both sides we've ever seen, but because the National League's just fallen off. But, I mean, Oakland has been really impressive these last 2 years.
They really have, and they kind of just came out of nowhere this season, obviously. We all knew Houston would win the division. But shout out to Oakland for, keeping pace. Obviously they're not going to win the division, but they're probably, I think, honestly, it's between Tampa and Cleveland for that wild card spot. I think Oakland can lock it up here.
Yeah, I do too.
Yeah, so I think it's mostly between Tampa Bay and Cleveland. We even see a game 163 in Tampa Bay. That would be very interesting.
Yeah, that would be very interesting. I don't know if the Rays have a better record against the Indians because the determination for who has home field is the team like in between the two who has the better record against each other. So I don't know who that would be, but still interesting to look about. In the Athletics, I mean, it seems like the last 2 years they've come from really being not even relevant to they just jump into September and they're like, hey, hi, we're here.
Like, who are you?
Yeah, like, I mean, last year that happened too, where they came out of nowhere and they're just like in the middle of it. And this year, I thought like before September, I thought the Athletics were like out. And then I looked, I'm like, oh, they're like leading the wild card.
Yeah, they're actually there.
Yeah. So that was really cool. And then, so that's going to do it for everything. That brings us to the topic of the week. Because we didn't talk about the Tigers a lot this week, they're your team. I'll let you take the floor.
Okay, well, before I even start, I'm just going to say, we know we're bad. Tigers, if you talk to any Tigers fan, they're going to know that we're bad. And if they don't know that we're bad, they live under a rock. they probably still think that we have Verlander, Scherzer, Anibal Sanchez, Pfister, and Porcello.
And Victor Martinez.
Not the case. And Victor Martinez. Not the case. And Delman Young. Not the case again. I'm going to be realistic here. Give us 4-5 years. I'm not saying we're going to win the division in those 4 or 5 years. I'm just going to say by the time I graduate college, we'll be in the playoffs again. Casey Mays is exciting. Fulmer is exciting. But at that time, I'm pretty sure Miguel Cabrera will retire, which I'll probably cry and have to hang up my hat to him. It's just my favorite player.
Hey, I thought I was going to cry when David Wright's last game last year, and I didn't.
That's true. Yeah, both impactful players for both of our teams. Miguel Cabrera, first ballot Hall of Famer. There's no question.
Yeah.
Second best hitter at this generation.
Maybe not first ballot, but at least right after that.
I mean, I think you have to give it to me. Triple Crown winner, 2-time MVP. This guy was just. He actually has a World Series also when he won with the Marlins his rookie year.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and this guy's also been to another World Series in which the Giants did own us. But this team, I mean, the lone bright spot for us, in my opinion, was Nicolas Castellanos, who is now in the Cubs. I wish him the best. I really hope he does well in Chicago for years to come. I don't know if they're going to re-sign him or anything like that.
He won't go back to the Tigers, though. That's for sure.
He's not going to the Tigers. There's no reason for him to go to the Tigers.
Especially because he's done so well.
He's too good for the Tigers right now. Shane Green also out of loan all-star this year, got traded away. So yeah, now we can officially say we are in full rebuild mode, and I cannot be more excited for our future. And just going to be a rough couple years.
Been there, done that. It's not fun.
It's not fun. But I'm an optimist. I'll be looking forward for the future for this Tigers team. And as we said before, the AL Central always switches. So maybe next season we'll see the White Sox jump in there somehow or some way. But it's not our turn. And our turn was our last decade was our turn. We'll have to wait until 2020-ish, 2023. But don't be surprised when you see us win a couple more games next year.
A couple more.
I'll give you 5 more games.
I was just gonna say maybe 5, but I mean, look, I actually don't remember when the Mets went to Detroit this year. I don't know if you do, but I don't remember the Mets going to Detroit this year.
I thought we played in Citi Field.
Yeah, you did, but I don't. Yeah. But normally you play 1-1. You'll play like a series there, a series here. But I don't remember them actually going to Detroit this year, which is really weird because normally like I remember every series, and I just for some reason I can't remember when we went to Detroit, if we even did.
I mean, it's Comerica. No one really remembers Comerica anymore.
That's true, but I mean. Actually, maybe I do remember. I don't know. Whatever. Doesn't matter because it's for me, it wasn't that important of a series, clearly. But watching the Tigers in that series at Citi Field, because, again, don't remember the other one. But watching them come to Citi Field and own us, I mean, they did great. I was really surprised at how well they did. They were a fighting team. Their offense is really, really good. Their pitching, it's got problems. I mean, they need to improve. You're saying decent because you've seen them not play well. And I mean, obviously you're seeing them play more than I am. But from what I see, they need to improve their pitching. I think they have a young staff. But I mean, I think ever since Jose Iglesias left, they've really just not had a solid bat in their lineup because Castellanos fell off and Iglesias was a great player for them. I really liked when he was on the Tigers. But, I mean, for me, I liked Victor Martinez. He was a great player. But I never really saw the Tigers play well. I started fully paying attention to the postseason in 2015 when the Mets made it there. And after that, I've watched every single playoff game. Before that, I really only watched the World Series, and I would keep up with who was doing what, but I never really focused on it. I would just, because, when your team's doing poorly, especially at a younger age, it's hard to be into it. It really is. I mean, I never really was able to watch the Mets play well. And the Tigers, they have a good base. They do. I mean, Kristen Stewart, he's a good player.
Jacoby Jones.
Yeah, Jacoby, I mean, he doesn't hit well, but I mean, he showed up against the Mets. He's a great defender. Yeah, somehow. I mean, John Hicks is a good backup behind James McCann, who is...
James McCann's in Chicago.
Huh. Wow. Was he on the Tigers before?
James McCann was on the Tigers before, but now he actually was in the All-Star team.
Yeah, I know. I remember that. I don't know why I thought he was on the Tigers. Huh. It's because he was.
He was. You are correct.
Okay.
Not anymore.
That's right. Yeah. But the one thing I'll always remember about the Tigers was Al Avila trading away his son.
I know.
That was the funniest thing I've ever seen.
It's an awkward Thanksgiving.
Yeah, to be fair, that was probably one of the funniest things I have witnessed in baseball, because the guy's like, "Hey, you're my son. Bye." Like, I don't know if he was told to do that. He may have been told,
maybe he wanted to leave. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm gonna assume he didn't.
But
just for funny purposes.
But I just find it like, maybe they said like, you can't be a general manager with your son on the team because you may be tempted to pay him like $1 billion. They may have thought that was unfair. I mean, we never know. We don't know the backstory, but you're right. Made for an awkward Thanksgiving, I'm sure. But I mean, the Tigers, it. They've got a few years. They do. But I think it'll be interesting to see how they do. But that'll do it. We've got another hour and a half podcast in today, but this was yet another really good one. I enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun. It was nice to have you, Nick. You were great. I mean, a lot of insight. Clearly, you know what you're talking about. It's good.
Thank you for having me.
And obviously, I'm going to try and mix in some more guests over the few weeks. But next week, the regular season will be over. So the next guest we have will be able to talk about postseason previews. So maybe if you come back on again, we'll be in the off season. I said that to Marco last week. Next time, you guys would probably be back as either late postseason or in the off season. Maybe you would be off season time. But I mean, it was great having you. Glad to have you here.
Appreciate you. Appreciate your time. Thanks, guys.
And so that'll do it for us this week at the Running the Bases podcast, episode 4. Yet another great one. And next time I see you guys, the postseason will be set. It is going to be an awesome final week of the season. Can't wait for it. We may end up having everything wrapped up really in a couple days, which would be a little uneventful. But you know what? It'll still be fun nonetheless. So thank you, everybody, for watching, and we'll see you all next time.
Tell me pretty lies, look me in the face. Tell me that you love me, even if it's fake.